Hey guys, did you know that November is National Adoption Awareness Month, a time dedicated to raising awareness about the vital role adoption plays in children's lives, especially those in foster care? Today, I have with me Stacy Gatlin, and Stacy is the founder of Yes, We Adopt, and she's on a mission to ensure that positive stories of Black families adopting Black children are shared and celebrated. Now, I found out with only 25% of Black children adopted by Black families, that's compared to 50% of white children adopted by white families. And Stacy, you believe it's time to shift that narrative and showcase the powerful impact adoption has on our communities, correct?
Absolutely, Janice. Absolutely. And thank you for having me today as well.
I'm glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Yes, We Adopt.
First of all, thanks for having me today. So Yes, We Adopt was really created because I'm a mom through adoption. And when my husband and I were going through our process, we couldn't understand why no one in our classes, our conferences looked like us. It didn't make sense to us. When we recognized at least 5 of our other friends had already adopted, same Black family, same race adoption, like, well, where are we at, basically? So Yes, We Adopt looks to say, yes, we adopt. And we actually spoke to our agency and said, understand, where are the Black families? And the constant answer was, well, we can't find Black adopted families. And I said, well, that math isn't mathing because we can find Black babies for adoption. We can easily find Black families that are willing to adopt. We know of them, we are them, and they exist all around. So Yes, We Adopt was created in the sense that how do we help identify more Black families to consider adoption and or fostering, because our children need us, and not family kids for families, but finding family for children, which is always the goal.
Absolutely. Now, what unique challenges do Black families face in adoption, and how does Yes, We Adopt help address these issues?
Great question. So I think we all recognize, and as a Black woman as well as a Black mom too, there's bias in every system. It's systemic bias, it's systemic racism that happens. So a simple fact, when children are even removed from the home, even considered a family from foster care is even being flagged like for a violation, kind of checking for neglect and abuse. Why is that happening? And oftentimes when families are being flagged because maybe a child's unkempt, or maybe the child's coming to school hungry, different reasons that happen in all families, right?
Mhm.
But oftentimes our families are flagged more than others. And then not just flagged for an investigation, but the removal part. So the bias in the system in terms of how we're often perceived, but also the act of actually moving children from the home is a higher prevalence. So why are there so many Black children in foster care? Because the incidents of being reported and then actually removal are higher than other families. Part one. Part two is also realizing when families like myself or yourself try to go to adopt a foster, the bias in the system says, you know what, if you answer the question slightly wrong or slightly that's not in alignment with what the person's interviewing or your counselors in their belief system, like, oh, they may be flagged, so you know what, they may not be fit to be a parent. Who
Oh,
says that? Who determines that, right? We feel bias all the time in the system. So how do we help not just rewrite the narrative, but also raise the flag to say, hey, Black families are truly qualified. We've been doing this for centuries of caring for our children.
absolutely. We're the village, right? That raised the children. So, yeah. So, is it that white people are mostly in charge of these adoption agencies? Is that what we're seeing?
That's definitely part one. There's definitely not that many. There are more Black agencies, adoption agencies years ago. But even not just from an agency perspective, we're talking about foster care and adoption, even in foster care or DCF or whatever the title for your agency in your in your location. Um, Even people are doing investigations. If there's bias in their own belief system and how they even approach people and how they see
Mhm.
people, right? That will cause a family to be not just investigated, but again, a child to be removed, or giving that child's parents a chance to try again. Don't we always want a second chance?
Mhm, for
Try
sure.
again. So that piece, those two pieces alone are a big piece of it. And I think the last piece too is that there is an effort. This is before yesterday. There's an effort to create more kinship. So that simply means like your grandmother take care of your aunt's kids, right? There's all
Mhm.
every family has that at some way, shape, or form. So there's more of an effort to have more kinship families. So that means they're not adopting a child and moving their entire biological family. Some that they already know. There's some familiarity that already happens in that one. So that's a bigger effort for DCF to kind of keep kids with their own biological family. And that may not always work. Let's be clear. Everything isn't for everybody, and sometimes our families are not equipped to really care for our children in a healthy way. And in those instances, if that does happen, families should have a chance to at least identify Black adoptive or foster families. But say you can't find them, that's not true because we're all here.
Right.
There's a whole community here.
Okay. Well, why do you think it's so crucial to amplify Black voices in these adoption spaces, and how does like this impact the larger community of Black people? And
Well, I think two things amplify voices because of the fact that I'll quote Nefertiti Austin is an author. Nefertiti's out of California, and she wrote the book called Motherhood So White. And I remember reading that, going through the process, like, oh my God, I see myself in this book because everything you looked, if you even Google Black adoption, it's changed today. But 4 years ago, they're talking about Black Labrador retrievers or Black cats. We are human. I
you're
know.
right.
You're
You're
like,
right. I remember that.
that's craziness, right? But
Yes.
amplifying our voices because we have a voice and we're part of the process. We're part of this community that exists, not just having cute little Black babies on Instagram for photos. We're not talking about that. We're talking
Right.
about families. We're talking about cultural heritage. We're talking about and self-identity, how our children identify themselves, not just as a cute little baby, but as an adult. There's a whole process, right? We're raising children, we're raising humans to be the best people they can possibly be. And having a Black family, someone that looks like you, that mirroring effect or that kind of that window effect makes a difference in how your identity, how you show up, how you sit taller. Not saying a white family cannot, but you know, like I know, being able to not get out the whole hair and skin conversation, how do you care for hair? That is one piece, but a smaller piece in terms of how a child's identity is shaped and formed when they see people that look like them and care for them and love for them.
Right. And I mean, we were seeing that trend back a few years ago where white celebrities would go to Africa and take a child, basically. They would take a child, right? And and we have to though ask like, why is it that like most like people don't even in our community don't consider adoption? What is holding us back?
Oh, good question. So I think there are three things that hold us back. One, we're not trusting the systems because historically the systems had always failed us, right? So trusting of systems to give our information, to research our background, understand are we a fit person, who you determine we're fit or not fit. That's part one. I think part two, there are some barriers, right? So from think of a private adoption, there's a cost impact. So there is some financial impact that makes a difference. And then number three is we've been doing this for a long time, Janice. It's no one's business, right? You know, we're about this, what stays in our house stays in our house. It's no one else's business but ours. So in that, not trusting systems is part one. But on the other end, are we telling our truth within our family? So if my grandmother raised my cousin and my cousin thinks that's her daughter, no, that's your grandmother. If we're not telling that secrecy and stigma and shame part that we always kind of keep it under the lid, we have to start telling our truth. So those are the three things that there's many more, but those are the kind of three priorities in terms of um, systemic people not want to we don't want to trust the system, and two, sometimes it's financial impact, and number three, we've already been doing it informally for centuries, right?
Mm,
Even back in
yes.
the times we took care of our other, if your parent was removed from their home, sadly back in that times, we took that child in and we took that child as our own. We've been doing this for so long, it's just what we do, but we have to also tell the truth about, listen, you did not come from mommy's belly, you actually are, this is your truth. It age appropriate, obviously, but still tell the truth. So there's no secrecy and no shame for the child.
Right. We see some celebrities doing that when I can't remember the celebrity recently, he lost a sister, took all the kids in. So that happens a lot in our community.
Absolutely.
However, when you hear people talk about adoption of all races, they always seem to want a baby. Like, and then I feel bad for the older children who are out there saying, I just want to be adopted. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I'll be honest with you. So we want a baby too. Kind of nature and nurture and kind of, help shape this child to be our own. We are an open adoption. Let me be very clear with that one. And that simply means that our son knows who his biological parents are, and we see them twice a year. So there's no hidden secrecy of that one. I think the baby effect is something you can shape on your own. And being fully honest, some people feel like if you're taking an older child, there's a problem with that child. No, there's a child. So understanding even of your own biological children may have challenges. How do you help navigate that? This was Black parenting, successful Black parenting. It's parenting 101.
Yes.
It is what we have to deal with, right? Biologically adopted or foster. How do you help your child be their full self, feel safe, feel loved, develop what they need to develop, but also grow into this amazing human being? This is what parenting 101 is. It won't be perfect. They may not be like you, may not even look like you, talk like you sound. It could be many different things, but we still have to Own that. That's what we signed up for, to be a parent. However you came to be a parent, that's what we signed up for. So now take this charge and you need to figure out how do you navigate with your child as best possible. And I want to add this too. This whole gentle parenting, I hate the terminology of it, but I get it. I grew up much, much older, right? You do what I said. Don't ask no questions. Go get it done. I was a permission. Can I have permission to do this one? We are raising a forgiveness kid. No, I'm not going to do that. Wait, what? So learning how to navigate that with him. But I said to him all the time, listen, I want you to be able to express yourself always. As a young Black male, it is so important for you to advocate for yourself with your words, not your fist, not your anger, not your emotion. Your words are what's going to help carry you and get you into rooms and help you navigate, even with authority, to understand, listen, this is my truth. So saying no is okay. Tell me why, and let's figure out how we can negotiate. My mama, you talk too much. I can talk a lot with him, but understand this too. He will not be muted or refuted or his voice be diluted because he has to be able to speak his truth, even at home. Sometimes I don't like it, Janice. Sometimes I can't stand it. But if you know how to do it with me, you know how to navigate the world. That listen, this is who I am. This is how I say. This is how I'm showing up, and this is what my truth is. And that to me is parenting 101. We're learning it. It's still learning. It's still trying to figure it out. But
Yes.
again, however you become a parent, it's so important that your child still, I think, stand true in their full identity and their full self.
Right. I love that. It won't be refuted, diluted, or muted.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. I love that. We might steal that one. That's awesome.
we gotta do.
um, tell me a little bit more about your journey of adopting. Like what age and how many children?
So one and done, because
Okay, one and done. Okay.
started late in our journey. And I think coming to adoption through infertility, that's our honest truth, right? Having
Okay.
some infertility challenges. But we always knew that we wanted to adopt because we recognized a lot of our children are needing loving homes.
Mhm.
That's the truth, right? As I said to you before, 5 of our friends had adopted, one international through
Mhm.
Haiti, one through foster care to adopt, one private, one domestic infant. So different pathways to adoption. All right, so we do this formally as well as informally as well too. So when we went through recognized infertility challenges, people say it was a plan A or plan B. It was always going to be part of the plan. There's not like, oh, this versus that. I don't need to go to IVF. Nope, we're going to adopt because of the fact we knew that Black families are needed. That's how our
Mhm.
process started. But as I said to you, as our journey, we didn't see it and it looked like us. I'm like, where are people at? And having that discussion, like, listen, we're not seeing Black, even some Black trainers, even Black
Wow.
teachers, educators in this adoption education. Where are we? So that's what the word Yes We Adopt, the name Yes We Adopt came from. But taking a step further, say, you know what, not just saying the name of it, but also creating this Yes We Adopt Summit. So the Yes We Doc Black Voices Amplified Summit was because of that. We want to amplify Black voices. You cannot tell me you cannot go to a conference and not see one Black speaker.
That's fantastic.
That doesn't make sense to me. So we also amplified, let me be very clear, we center adoptee voices. Adoptees or former foster youth had no say in their process, right? No say. One person have a choice like, I'm going to do this. Yes. The adoptive parent did, the birth parent did. They had no say in this one. So centering adoptive voices is so important because make sure their voices are heard and to also tell their story, tell their truth in safe space and let them honor their truth, honor their stories. So the Yes We Adopt Summit really brings together the constellation they call it. So adoptees or former foster youth,
Mhm.
biological or birth parents, how you terminology, birth or first parents, adopted and former foster parents as well, and also folks that are in professional spaces like attorneys or counselors or adoption agencies, because that conversation has to happen so we can also dispel myths, um, also provide healing. If I say to you, Janice, we had one adopted person last year at our summit. He's like, listen, I'm almost 40 years old. I found out when I was 12 years old I was adopted by a fluke. When I
Mhm.
asked my mom, she was like, "Yeah, so what? Go out and play." And he's like, I'm sitting there crying and bawling. She's like, cut it out and go play. You're fine. You're loved in a safe, loving home."
Mhm.
So he said, "I've been muted, right? He's been
Right.
been muted for almost 30 years. Like that makes no sense to me, but that's people's truth. So again, if we give adoptees the chance to have a safe space to share their truth, that is the game changer. And that's part of the mission for Yes We Adopt. How do we help amplify Black voices from the therapist, from the attorney, from the agency, from the counselor? But again, we all have stories to tell our truth. So let's hear it.
Right, right. No, no. And you have a son or a daughter?
I have a son.
Son, how old is your son now?
He's 10 years old now, going on
And
30.
you adopted him how long? I mean, how old was he?
He was days old.
Days old. So you did get it. Okay. I wasn't sure. I know you said you wanted one. I didn't know if you got one. That's
Yes, yes,
awesome.
yes, and
Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
adoption is expensive and takes a long time. It can be all those things and not. But what I would say too, the biggest piece was you want to be in an open adoption or closed adoption. And not that, oh, I'm gonna keep my information safe. Closed open adoption does not mean they know your social security number and your address. It simply means that you're having some form of communication between yourself and your child's biological family. Something. So when
Right.
they do ask questions and you turn three, like, mommy, tell me again that time I grew up in your belly. That didn't happen. Maybe we talked about that before. So talking about it early enough so they know the truth. So when they go to school and see Jimmy's gonna have a baby sister, I'm a baby sister because the kid, our son is a little, he's a jokester. Mom, remember that time you said you were gonna have a baby? Are you pregnant now? And I'm like,
Uh,
that's not possible. Well, your belly's big, and I'm like, boy,
oh, your own children. It be your own children.
people every time Jack has to snatch you up. We still joke about that. That was like 6 years ago. We still joke about that. But again, from a cognizant understanding, like, wait, I wasn't able not in your belly. So just helping him understand his truth early is a game changer. Now, granted, 10 years old, different identity in school. He's Mr. Cool. He's an A plus in Mr. Social Skills. But for him, it's like, mommy, don't talk about the adoption stuff so much on your personal page because I don't want my friends to find out. I have to honor
Mhm.
that, right? Again, letting him own his truth. I have to honor that and not talk about it on my personal page. So yes, I'm promoting it that way, but my friends and family know, and he knows. But it's like kids can be mean.
Yeah.
Kids can be mean.
Yeah. No, that's all something to think about. But I do want to get back to the summit
Yes,
because the theme of this year's summit is bonding families through care, right? Community, advocacy, relationship, and is engagement, right?
right.
So, how did you come about getting that, having that theme for this particular summit?
Wow. So the theme really came about because I realized that even the whole CARE acronym,
Hmm.
you have to be in community. People feel safe in community, as you know, right? And you've created your own community with Black systems of Black parenting. So we can feel seen and feel heard and feel loved and even just feel sometimes hope. The advocacy piece is that helping, again, adoptees to tell their stories, but even also for birth first parents. The shame that birth parents often feel, or the assumption that a birth parent was some drugged out teenager. That's not the case. There could be educated women that had a situation that was not ideal for them or not safe for them. And then the relationship piece, we create relations by opening the dialogue. It's so, so important, right? And also with community partners. So you're considered not part of the village, the Yes We Adopt Village, and our community partner now to say, how do we can tell our stories, but also how do we change the narrative? And lastly, by engaging, when we engage in our truth, but also engage in person, people are like, oh my God, I know I need this. I didn't know I need this because you're sitting in isolation. Oh, I had questions. I didn't know how to ask the question. Who can I ask this question of? That's where the bonding family, because we are a family, the village, as you said yourself, it's the village part. It's our village that we've always created a village, but doing it in person and doing it in this safe space is always important to make sure we can feel seen and heard, but also there's some healing that goes in there too. How do you feel healing because you missed out or because you didn't have or because you just we're sitting in isolation in that one. So that's bonding our families through care. That's the goal. That's the goal. And we'll have our keynote speaker is an adopted woman. She's amazing, actually pursuing her PhD, Joy Fisher Griffin, who'll talk about her story as an adoptee. She did find her biological family as well too. But even that piece, how do you go about searching for a biological family? And the hurt you may have had in the past, can that be healed? Is it still tender? And more importantly, does your biological parents want to be found. So until we talk about those things out front and out loud, and helping maybe another doctor person in the audience feel like, oh my God, that's my story, that's my truth, that's I feel the same way, and be able to open that dialogue. It's I keep saying dialogue because again, if we don't talk about it, we can't change it.
Right, right. So tell them the logistic parts too. When is the summit? Where is it? And how do they register?
Awesome. So the summit will be Saturday, November 9th. We'll be in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the New Jersey Law Center. It's One Constitution Way. Simple registration. If you go to yesweadopt.com/2024 summit, just go to yesweadopt.com. It's on the website. Click on summit. The information right there to register. We'd love to have you for your guests and for your subscribers and listeners. Please join us. You'll be surprised. I've had friends who were not looking to be a parent. I'm not gonna be a parent. I'm good. They said, "Oh my God, I didn't much I learned just from again what my perspective was. Too much Lifetime TV, too much Lifetime. What Lifetime perceives from the adoption stories is not always reality. We have people with real lived experience telling their truth. That is always going to help us proceed and move forward as a community."
Okay, and I put that right up on the screen so people can see
Yep. Thank you
yesweadopt.com.
so much.
Now, let's end on a real positive note. If you can think of a success story besides your own that you can share with our audience, just to let them know the power of adopting Black children and how it affects them. Can you think of something to end on?
Gosh, so many positives. So people, I want to be very clear. The people say adoption is trauma. There's trauma involved in it, yes. But the joy part, the rainbows part, it's always going to be unicorns, rainbows, because parenting is not that, right? Is that part of your story, Joy? Janice, because it's not
No,
mine.
no, no. This is a struggle at times, yes.
Right, absolutely. But the joy part, I would say, in terms of the adoption, is that you know that children are in a loving, safe home. And more importantly, they can see that the power of community say, you know what? When my parents couldn't, these folks could. But not just for me, but to recognize that giving me the chance to live my best life. Nothing they couldn't have done with their biological family. That's it at all. But when you recognize now you have two families to kind of really boost you up to say, you know what, you are worthy of love from many angles, from many sides, and also owning your truth as you choose to share it. And the community is here, the village is here. I'm not the only families out there that adopted, so it's only adopted. But even for adult adoptees to see youth and back and forth, and for former foster youth to recognize, listen, they may not have been adopted, but teens can be adopted as well too. So can adults. So listen, adoption does not mean separate from your family, because I don't believe in that one. You need to know who your roots are. Your roots are going to help you soar. That's the goal of Yes We Adopt. Not always perfect, and ideally preservation of a family if we can, but that's not possible. How do we have this village here to support you in your journey?
Well, that's fantastic. And I'm sure you can go to yesweadopt.com for resources and help. So, guys, if you're thinking about adoption, here's your resource, especially being a Black parent, go to
Absolutely.
yesweadopt.com. All right. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing all of this
Thank you.
wonderful information with our audience today. I'm so glad you came on.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
Bye
Bye.
bye.